Infinite black metallic inside of the Lincoln Aviator looks incredibly sharp, especially when it's paired with the available Jet Appearance package that adds on some unique black highlights, including these gorgeous 22-inch black wheels. This is the 2024 Lincoln Aviator, and it's the Reserve model, which is technically the only model choice that's available in Canada. There are some small differences though from the 23 to the 2024. The Grand Touring model, so the plug-in hybrid, is no longer available. On top of that, the Aviator is in a short production run. Actually, I don't think as of today you can put in any more factory orders for the 24. Lincoln's gearing up for the all-new 2025, which is refreshed outside and inside with some big changes that I'll point out once we hop inside the vehicle. In the US, you're going to find the Aviator standard with rear-wheel drive inside of the Premier and the Reserve trim levels. In Canada, we only have the option for Lincoln's intelligent all-wheel drive. And then that intelligent all-wheel drive system is available optionally in the lower trims of the US model, with it being standard in the black label. Wheel size and styles all over the place, but they're similar to the 2023 model. Inside of the entry level, so the Premier trim, you're starting off at 19-inch wheels up to 20-inch. In the Reserve, it's either 20 or 22-inch wheels. You're still going to find the Aviator with the optional air glide suspension system. And that thing just brings a complete change in the dynamics of the handling of the Aviator. Now, the Aviator in general has a really good suspension setup, but that air glide suspension system just takes it to the next level. The blacked out grille inside of the Aviator looks solid. And this one does have the available illumination package as well. So in every trim level of the Aviator, you will find LED headlamps. But with that illumination package, it brings dynamic bending headlamps to the vehicle. And what that means is as you're turning left, right, whatever the case may be, the lamps are going to automatically bend to follow that turn in the road, just making it infinitely easier to see in comparison. You're going to find fog lamps inside of this thing, the option for the forward sensing system, depending on how you have it packaged out. And then in the Reserve, you've also got that front-facing camera, side-mounted cameras, and the backup camera for that full 360 view. So this thing is fairly loaded with technology. I did mention with the 2025 Aviator, it is going to get a little bit of a refreshed exterior. It's going to be very noticeable inside of the grille. It's a longer, taller profile in comparison, but you'll have a lot of the same technology from the 2024 into the 2025 model. Underneath the hood of the 2024 Aviator. Now, I did mention the Grand Touring model is no longer available, so the 24 Aviator only has the option for the 3-liter twin turbocharged engine. The Grand Touring, it was technically the same engine anyways, it's just that it was paired with a nano-electric motor to give you better launch, so better horsepower, torque, and better fuel economy in comparison. Slightly better. But power-wise, this 3-liter twin turbo is amazing. 400 horsepower, 415 pound-feet of torque. So if you love having fun on your ride, this thing, the power has you covered. You've got easy access to top up fluids if you want to, check and change your oil as well. And then this thing also has a little strut tower brace on top of that. Now, one nice thing about being a Lincoln owner is that you do also have a pretty solid warranty. So it's a 4-year, 80,000 kilometer or 50,000 mile. And then your powertrain warranty is going to be a 6-year, 110,000 kilometer or 70,000 mile, which is pretty solid. The Aviator is technically built on the same platform as the Ford Explorer, with the Ford Explorer ST, the King Ranch, and the Platinum being very close when you look at strictly power. But the feature sets are fairly different though. But if you want a comparison video looking at the Aviator versus the Explorer, you'll find that down in the description of this video. Filling up fuel inside of the Aviator is just along the driver's side. Unlocked cover. It's got a capless system, but it does have anti-siphon technology built in, so people aren't just going to jam things in there trying to siphon out fuel. But looking at fuel quality, minimum manufacturer's recommendation across the Lincoln lineup is technically just 87 octane. But this thing is a 3-liter twin turbocharged engine. Ideally, you're using a premium fuel, like a 91, 93 if it's in the budget and if it's available. You're going to notice the difference in power. Like the horsepower and torque specs that we were looking at under the hood, they're all achieved using a premium fuel. Do you need to use one? No, because like I said, minimum manufacturer's recommendation is just regular gas, so just regular 87. But if you do have it in the budget, try for like an 89 or ideally a 91 for a few cycles. And if you're a power lover, you will absolutely notice the difference in comparison. The Lincoln Aviator features quad tip exhaust. It's going to have the backup camera and then the rear wiper, which is tucked and hidden right along the very top, which I think kind of looks nice. This thing also does have the available tow package, and towing inside of the Aviator, you can get up to 5,600 pounds, which I think is pretty respectable. If you needed to tow a little bit more than that, you are looking at bumping yourself up to the beastly Navigator instead. You can find a walkthrough video on the Navigator in the description of this video. If you've got an Aviator with the trailer tow package, it's nice because it's cut out nicely and it's covered off by this little cover here, which, I mean, it hides things and it just looks sharp. In order to pull this thing off though, it's really straightforward. It feels like you're gonna break something, but you're not. So there's a little handle underneath. All you're gonna do is grip and then start to pull. See there, it pops out. And that's it. And then underneath here, you've got your 7 and your 4-pin wiring harness, and then your receiver. I did mention towing inside of this thing, you're going up to 5,600 pounds. And then reinstalling, you've got a bunch of teeth along the very bottom. So you're just gonna slide the bottom in first. Once you're lined up, you're just gonna take the clips, push them back in, and you're set to go. Now, looking at the liftgate inside of this thing, you can open it up a few ways. You can use the key fob. There's a button just to the left-hand side of the steering wheel. And then if you trace just underneath the second L in Lincoln and drop down, there's a button there. You're gonna push in order to lift this thing up. Now, this is as high up as the tailgate's gonna go, or the liftgate's gonna go. And one nice thing is that if your garage is a little bit lower, or if you can't reach the buttons, you can pull down and then press and hold in order to be able to lock it down into that lower place. So every time it's opened, it won't go past, which is kind of nice. And then this is just the regular carpeted liner in the back. You do have an option for a thermoplastic rubber tray right from the factory. Popping this thing out, there's a nice amount of storage underneath, and then you can lift this up in order to get access to the mini spare tire. And then you've got your mini spare, and then there's also the white spigot if you ever need to fill up using a jerry can. On top of that, the jack is located just underneath the tire. So, or the wheel, I should say. If for whatever reason, let's say you pop a tire, puncture a tire, you need to change a tire out in an emergency situation, I said the jack is there. But one nice thing about being a Lincoln owner is that you've got access to Lincoln roadside assistance, and that's good for the same length as the powertrain warranty. So it's a 6-year, 110,000 kilometer or 70,000 mile. And that's useful for things like tire changing, fuel delivery, winching services, battery jumps, and a boatload of other things. So if anything ever happens to your Lincoln, you can call an 800 number for a tow truck to come and pick you up instead, which, I mean, if you don't like to do it yourself, someone can come and do it for you instead. Along the left, you've got a little subwoofer. Along the right, there's a 12-volt power point, and then the releases for the third row seats. So it's power down for the third row, up and down, and then the second row is manual, which I'll show you in a second. All you're gonna do is press, and down it goes. That's nice. It's a little slow, but I mean, it is nice that it is power. Would be nice for a power second row as well, but if you need to fold down the second row seats, you're just gonna go along the second row. And then there are 2 buttons. So there's one along the top in order to get into the third row. There's also a release along the side of the seat. So you're gonna pull that in order to lower it down. But when you have the second row folded down, there is a great amount of space inside the vehicle. And one thing to note is that the measurements that you're looking at, it's going from right where the liftgate would close to just in behind the armrest between the driver passenger first row seats. So if those seats are slid forwards, backwards a little bit more, you're going to be plus or minus a few inches either way. Now, one thing, this is the bench configuration, which means it's got the middle seat. So the middle seat can be folded down independently. There's a tab along the top you can pull in order to be able to fold it down. But like I said, there is a solid amount of space inside of this thing. And then in order to raise the seat, in the third row anyways, you're just going to push the button again, and that's going to bring the seat up. You still have to lift the headrest up yourself though. But still, that's easy enough to do at the same time. Taking a peek at the key fob for the Aviator, unchanged from the 23 to the 24 model. You've got the Lincoln logo along the very back, unlock button, lock button, remote start, trunk release, horn or panic alarm, and then the emergency access key. So the emergency access key can be used in a few spots. So if the fob's ever died and you need to get in, you can just insert there and twist in order to get inside. You can lock the glove box as well. You can easily remote start and then roll the windows down using the fob. But if you want to walk through and how that works, you'll find it down in the description of this video. The side view mirrors on this thing do feature turn signals. They're heated, and it also does have the blind spot monitoring system, and they're power folding. The Aviator still does feature the 5-digit number pad, so you can enter in a 5-digit combo to get in if you don't have the fob on you. You can also unlock the door. This thing has intelligent access. You can also slide your hand in order to unlock. That roast interior. Yeah, that's nice. I'll touch on the interior there in just a second, but this one has one of the added packages that gives you the perfect position seats as well. So it's a 30-way perfect position massage seat. All of your controls for the driver's seat, regardless though, are going to be along the door. It's just that in the advanced seating option, you have way more options, like adjusting the individual leg cushions if you wanted to, with the massage seat capability with driver's seat memory. You've got the unlock lock button, controls for your side view mirrors, including power folding, basic window controls. This is the button to get out of the vehicle. And if for whatever reason the battery's died or you can't get out, there's also an emergency door handle release on the very bottom there as well. All of your instrument lights there, so you can open and close the liftgate, turn your fogs on or off, figure out what's going on with the running lamps, and then increase, decrease the brightness of the cluster screen. Getting under the hood is just a double pull, and then you've also got the Lincoln scuff plate there, with these being the thermoplastic rubber trays. Now, these ones have seen better days, but definitely needs to get cleaned off. But you've got your thermoplastic rubber trays instead of just the regular cloth ones instead. That seat though, oh, that's nice. All right, hold on. Oh, that's nice. All right, do a little startup here. Oh, startup, hold on, let me show you that. That just looks nice. Little screen startup there as well. There we go. And now that this thing is started up, let's look at Headspace. So, seat down as far as it's gonna go. And fully upright, I've got, what's that, like 4-ish inches of headspace, which is pretty solid. I'm 6 feet tall, so like 6'4", 6'5", maybe 6'6", you'll be able to fit inside of this thing. Otherwise, if you're taller, you're bumping yourself up to the Navigator instead. But the seat inside of this thing is super comfortable. As I go to adjust the headrest, that can't be adjusted that way. It's all done power through the side there. Just so neat. So you can go back, forwards with it, up and down to create a very unique position. And that's one nice thing, because there are so many ways that you can hug the seat, including, as I mentioned, massage chair seats. Look at that. That is beautiful. So you can turn on massage chair for the driver and for the passenger side. But there are a few different options that are available there. Low, medium, high. It's really nice. And the steering wheel inside of this thing is solid. Heated steering wheel available as well, so you can turn it on there. But this is just a basic walkthrough. If you want like a fuller walkthrough on the steering wheel buttons, the cluster screen, how to use the adaptive cruise control system, or even the Sync 3 infotainment system, you'll find those walkthroughs in the description of this video. But there are so many unique things. I love it. Honestly, I love that fully digital cluster. It's nice. The steering wheel is solid. I mentioned heated. There's a voice assistant, and this thing even has paddle shifters. So minus on the left, plus on the right-hand side. If you've never used paddle shifters, it is a beautiful, beautiful system. So I've put together a walkthrough video on how to use paddles inside of the S650 Mustang, but it applies the same across every vehicle you're going to drive, whether it's paddle shifters or manual mode, whatever the case may be. So you'll find that walkthrough down in the description of this video. But speaker, the style here is solid. Like the ebony roast interior here, like that roast is solid. Nice ebony colors, the nice contrasts. I know some people aren't crazy about the wood grain. There is an aluminum applique that you can get right from the factory, and then you can always go aftermarket. Like 3M has some incredible wraps that are available to make it a little bit more customized to you and what you personally like. But the style is great. There are a series of different speaker choices that are available. So inside of the Aviator, you're going to find either a 10, a 14, or a 28 speaker audio system, just depending on how you've packaged out your Aviator. And the audio inside of it, especially when you get into that 28 Revel, is beautiful. So what I'm going to do, plugging myself into USB just to prep as we go through the infotainment system, just the basics. But this thing, I'll kind of push you through. So you can see there, you've got your factory navigation. Ooh, going crazy there. Crazy. There we go. All right, so you've got factory navigation inside of this thing. I swear it doesn't look like this in person. It's just because of the difference in frame rates. But factory nav, very responsive. Now this is the Sync 3 system with the regular factory navigation. I was looking at the 2025 Explorer at the auto show, and that thing has the next generation Ford operating system that's built on the Google Android operating system instead.
I think that the Aviator is getting the same thing. Like at a very minimum, it's getting upgraded to the Sync 4, but I think it's going to skip that and go to the next gen because the Explorer is built on the same platform. But I'll know more in the next couple months when the next gen Aviator is fully released. Like, oh, fingers crossed, I'd love to see that option though. But the factory navigation inside of this thing is included. You've got updates that are available as well. All sorts of different options. So audio sources, you've got AM, FM, Sirius XM, and Bluetooth, USB that's available there as well. So let's actually go through and do a little audio test right now. So this is just coming right out of the speaker or the microphone here itself. There's no post-processing done whatsoever.
You're successful cause they try to be. They sit there being judgmental because you're trying things, and they just want you to settle and do the right thing. So get a good job, don't slack off. Wake up every morning, make a good impression on your boss. Don't do anything.
The audio inside of this thing is so outrageously good. I love it. The audio is just pumping. Like the number of speakers inside of this thing, they are all over the place. But there are so many other things to the screen. So you've got Android Auto, Apple CarPlay support, series of different driver assistance and safety settings and things like that. But like I said, full walkthrough, you'll find that down in the description. This thing does have the option for park assist. So it can help out with parallel perpendicular parking, parallel park out. But if you want to walk through and using park assist, you'll find it down below. This thing's also got a 360 camera. Oh, there we go. So full 360 view you can see there. You could shoot it out to a front view, front 180 degree view. And then if you jump into reverse, it's the same idea. So you've got the backup view there, backup more view, backup 180 view instead. So it's kind of neat that you've got that available. I love the piano key shifters there. You've got your volume rocker, tuning rocker, climate control with heated steering wheel, and heated and ventilated first row seats. That's nice. You've got a series of different climate control settings that are available there. Basics for your menu, but you've also got the flexibility of pushing this button to control the rear as well. So you can go second versus third row. You can link them up together if you want to, turn them on off, and you can even lock it out. So if people in the back are fighting over the climate, you could lock it out. And that's not only for the climate, but that's also for media and a number of other things too. It's pretty neat. This thing does have a good amount of storage space in there. So this typically rated closed, with a few cup holders and a little storage tray. This thing has an electronic parking brake and then a series of selectable drive modes. Ooh, need some gas. I know, I get it. But you've got your normal slippery versus deep conditions, and then across the other way, eco-conscious, so a conserve versus excite. I personally would keep myself in the excite mode because it's going to hold on to the RPMs a little bit longer. It's like you're driving in a sport mode with that setting, so that is definitely the way to go. This thing doesn't have a dedicated low gear though, so if you're towing, if you're going uphill, steep inclines, whatever the case may be, that's when you can use paddle shifters in order to essentially rely on engine braking, so you're essentially putting yourself into a low gear mode instead. The armrest inside of this thing is non-lockable, but on the inside, you've got a 12-volt power point. There's a wireless charge pad built right in there as well. And then you've also got a little storage tray. This thing technically is removable, but it's a pain to reinstall it, so I'm just going to leave it there. But the wireless charge pad is great. One downside though is that the Sync 3 screen is still wired Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. So the next gen is wireless. So I mean, if they have the same wireless setup there with wireless Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, it's like the best of all worlds. So like I said, I can't wait until I can see that next gen system coming soon. Shooting it to the side, you've got this nice glossy highlight, glove box that's fully lockable. This thing features an auto-dimming rear view mirror, so if there's bright lights going on behind you, this thing will automatically dim. And then you've got basic controls for your cabin lights, and then controls for the panoramic sunroof. So typically, there we go, I'm just going to close this thing just so you can kind of see the whole process here, but single button press closes it halfway for the shade. Secondary button press is going to close it the full way. From there, you've also got some controls for the actual sunroof. So you've got a single control there in order to be able to open the roof, and then push away again in order to fully open, well, almost fully open. So it's just about fully open there. You do one more button press for that last little inch and change. But I mean, with that roof open, that's nice. You've got a little bug guard there as well, just in case. And then you can do a single button press in order to close it again. From there, you've got sunglasses holder. Visor has the HomeLink system built in, so if you've got a garage door opener at home, you can program it in. I'll leave a link down in the description if you want to know how to actually program this thing. And there you've got a little receipt holder on the inside. Vanity mirror has lights right into it. And then this thing extends out, blocking. Oh, yeah, there we go. Blocking all of the sun. That might be hitting your face. Yeah, that's good though. The visibility is solid inside of this thing all around. Not too much in your blind spot there, but like I said, you've also got the blind spot monitoring system. So that's going to highlight if somebody's entered the blind spot on either side of the vehicle. But I mean, the interior here is solid. And I honestly can't wait for the next generations of the 2025 Aviators to start showing up. Like the big one, obviously, like you've got some nice interior changes. I can't wait for the changes that are going to come to the infotainment system, because I think that Ford's or Lincoln, they're skipping over the Sync 4 system and going right to the Lincoln OS, which is going to be featured in the next gen Aviator. I'm like, hopefully that's the case, or the next gen Nautilus, I should say. I can't wait to see if that's the case, but the order guides don't show it yet. So I'm like, oh, we'll get some information very, very soon. But unfortunately, this unit is sold, so I can't take it out for a spin. But I've done some Aviator Drive videos before. Honestly, I love the way that the Aviator handles on the road, especially when you get into the dynamic handling package with the air suspension system. For most people, it'll probably be a little bit of overkill, but if you like the finer things, there are different options available, including the interior, because this is just the roast interior. You've got different color choices that are available. When you get into the US exclusive black label, that's when you have even more unique interiors available as well. And then, as I mentioned, under the hood, a lot of other black label benefits over and above that. But well, let's take a peek at the second row. So hold on, I gotta set the seat up the way that I would traditionally drive. There we go, yeah. So with the driver's seat set up for myself being 6 feet tall, inside of the second row, I've got a great amount of knee space, great amount of foot space, and up overhead, with me sitting fully upright, like 1.5-inch-ish, roughly, of headspace. But two nice things about the second row seats inside of the Aviator. The first one is that there's a lever along the side. So this is the one that you would pull in order to fold the seat flat. But you can also give it a slight little recline. And then that slight recline gives me about an extra inch and change roughly of headspace, which is pretty solid. And then if you're a little bit taller, needing to sit in the second row of the Aviator, just in between your legs, there's also a little bar there. And that's strictly on the outboard seats. So driver passenger side, this middle seat won't have it, but there's a bar you can pull in order to slide the seat forwards or backwards a little bit more, just depending on how much space you potentially might need, which, I mean, that's super useful. Hold on, we're gonna need this in a second. I'll show you the third row space in a sec, but things to point out, you've got pockets behind both the driver and the passenger side back here. And then the door, very similar to the first row. Style-wise is great. You've got your unlock and lock buttons, your little, I think that's kind of neat, door release as well. On top of that, there's also second row shades that you're going to find inside of this thing, which again, very useful. Overhead, there's a little handle, hook, and a light, and that's the same for the passenger side there as well. So handle, hook, speaker, light, shade, all that fun stuff. Now this is a little control for a few things. So let's just turn it into accessory mode for a second. Now, while this is kind of launching up, there are a few different seat configurations you're going to find inside of the Aviator. So the default is typically going to be dual captain's chairs with a mini console in the middle. Then there's the bench seat, and then you've also got the option for a full console. So it'd be dual captain's chairs with a full console instead. So the question is, which way do you go? It honestly depends on you and what your needs are. Because obviously if you need a 7-seat vehicle, you're going to need the bench configuration. If you want an easier pass through to the back, get the mini console. But if you want something a little bit more unique with storage and things like that, the full console could be the way to go. But there are a series of different options that are available. As I mentioned, the first row, a series of different interior color choices too. But this is nice. Now, actually, I guess one nice thing about having this bench seat configuration is, like, typically when you get the setup with either the mini console or the full console, you'd have cup holders there. But inside of the bench configuration, you've got a nice armrest to separate, and then you can push. I like that, in order to show the cup holders. Beefy. It's useful. Now, for the controls here, you've got a few different options that are available. So you can see your time, what the third row temperature is. you can adjust seats. So this thing has the option for heated and ventilated outboard seats. So it's going to be for the driver and for the passenger and for the driver's side. So this middle seat is never going to be heated. But looking down, you've got, as I said there, your basic controls, climate settings there as well. So you can adjust either the second or the third row climate. You can also adjust audio from the third row. And then there are a series of different settings. So you can change out the mode if you wanted to go to a different mode. You can turn it into a calming screen instead if you just didn't want anything showing. And then if you do have this enabled, you actually have the flexibility of disabling it from that first row, so through the infotainment system. So if people in the second row are fighting, you can lock them out. There are some basic vent controls down there, and then some power points. So you've got 2 USB Type-C, and then there's also a 150 watt wall outlet back there as well. Can you see? Oh, there we go. So just a regular 150 watt wall outlet back there. But the second row space inside of this thing, especially with the seat slightly reclined, is pretty solid. Getting into the third row, when you've got the setup for the bench, is actually not that hard at all. So all you're going to do, hop outside. Then there's a button right along the top. So you're just going to push that button in order to be able to get in. This thing does have tether points too. So it's got anchor points and tethers. So if you have kid seats, you can go into the second row with them. I guess even technically the third, is this thing does have the anchor points on the top tethers as well. But here's the thing. It is very tight inside of the third row. Like, look at this, I can barely comfortably sit. I have to kind of scoot out to the side if I wanted to sit inside of the third row slightly comfortably. And this seat isn't as far back as it'll go, so it can still come back a bit more. But headspace, we'll get to the leg in a second, but headspace, sitting fully upright, the back of my head is just touching the top here. So there isn't a ton of extra headspace inside of the third row. And the other thing, because this is this configuration, very, very tight back here. Now this seat is as far forward as it's going to go for the passenger side. So I mean, there is a decent amount of space there, but it's just tricky with this seat with the bench configuration. So if you've got one of the mini console, you'd have way more leg room for people that are in the third row. And then with the full console, it's close to the same amount of leg space here as well. So that's going to dictate which version of the Aviator you end up going for. Not a ton of stuff back here. You've got some cup holders, a little bit of storage back there, and a little vent control. Up overhead, there's a little light, and then the same thing on the passenger side. So cup holder, and then a little storage on top of that with some basic hooks. Getting out of the third row, straightforward. So there's a button on the top there. You're just going to push and pull. In order to get outside. And that was a look at the 2024 Lincoln Aviator Reserve. You can find a build link for this Aviator and the contact details for Formula Lincoln down in the description of this video, along with all the walkthrough videos for the tech side of things that we were looking at inside. But if you found this video useful, share it with a friend, subscribe if you haven't already, and until I see you next time, take care.